can and cannot do. I'll give you another example, which you said. About 7 years ago, a Google engineer said there are not enough women in tech because they're not as qualified biologically as men. I kid you not. And in 2004, Harvard's president, Larry Summers, said there's not enough women matriculating or majoring in the STEM fields because, and I'm quoting him, they are not as biologically qualified. I kid you not, he was put on leave for a while. I never came back. He was put on leave. But I'm just saying, you made an excellent point, because that is exactly one of the factors which accounts for the low ranking. Other factors which might surprise you, as they did me. For example, the US has made very little progress in closing the economic gender gap, and has a significant gap when it comes to the number of women in political positions. In the workplace as well, equal pay for equal work, equal employment opportunities, and paid maternity leaves are still some of the top issues women have to face in the US. Which brings me to the following, another shocker, and the US is one of the very few countries in the world that does not actually have a national paid maternity leave policy. In fact, the US is one of only 8 countries in the world that do not mandate paid leave for mothers of newborn. So, besides the US, the only other countries are the Marshall Islands, Papua New Guinea, Nauru, Tonga, Micronesia, and the Marshall Islands. Only 13 states have passed paid maternity leave laws, including California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Maryland, Maine, New York, New Jersey, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Washington. So most employees in the United States pretty much rely on voluntary employer benefits and paid parental leave, solely because we don't have a national paid parental leave. And as a point of comparison, globally, the average paid maternity leave is 29 weeks. And the average paid paternity leave is 16 weeks. Paid leave is an essential component to women's economic empowerment, and this leaves a huge policy gap between the United States and nations like Canada, the United Kingdom, and Sweden, where family well-being is actually a priority. The UK, for example, offers 52 weeks. Sweden offers 480 days paid parental leave after the birth or even adoption of a child, and this includes maternity and paternity leave. And Canada offers up to 15 weeks paid maternity leave. And then there's the issue of child marriage, which not only has devastating health and socioeconomic outcomes, but also perpetuates gender inequality with damaging repercussions for a girl's life, effectively ending her childhood and trapping her in a cycle of poverty and disempowerment, not only at all levels, but potentially for generations to come. And while most countries have enacted laws against child marriage, today the number of girls married in childhood globally stands at 12 million a year, which means that every 2 seconds, a young girl before the age of 18 is married. Now, child, early, and forced marriage is not only a major violation of human rights, which remains widespread across the world, across many religions and cultures, it also affects boys and girls, don't get me wrong, but child marriage disproportionately impacts girls, especially in developing countries, where approximately 18% married before the age of 18 are boys, and 82% are girls. So it disproportionately affects girls. And oftentimes, again, there's a tendency to assume that these harmful practices are limited to developing countries, and that's not exactly the case. Which brings me back to the US. While the United States Department of State calls marriage before the age of 18 a quote-unquote human rights abuse, it simultaneously allows for laws and policies that enable and allow child marriage. Believe it or not, child marriage is still prevalent in the US and remains legal in 37 states. allowing marriage before the age of 18, as long as the child has some combination of either a judge's order, proof of pregnancy, parental permission, or premarital counseling. To date, only 13 states have passed legislation banning child marriage, and until 2017, child marriage was legal in all 50 US states. And this road has not been easy. For example, the most recent legislative victory was in New Hampshire in June of 2024. And this was achieved after more than 7 years of persistent advocacy. This marked a crucial turning point for the protection of minors in the state by eradicating the legalized loopholes that previously allowed children into marriage. For unknown and unspecified reasons, the legal system in this country tends to complicate all efforts to end underage marriage. In fact, research has revealed that more than 300,000 children, most of them young women, were married as young as the age of 10 in America since the year 2000, mostly girls with adult men. In comparison, you have countries like Iceland, who, remember, ranks #1, has committed to ending child early and forced marriage, where by and large, and I say by and large because there are certain cases where the Ministry of Justice is able to grant an exemption, but by and large, anyone under the age of 18 is strictly prohibited by law to wed. So in sum, I cannot reiterate this enough. Institutionalized gender discrimination and gender inequality continues to be one of the most crucial challenges of our time. Not only is it a fundamental human right, it is also a strategic imperative.